Dear learners, I would like to welcome you all to this lecture on international economics. So, this lecture is basically a part of our Module 11, Unit 5, that is International Capital Movement. So, for in general language, international capital movement can be explained as it is basically a flow of financial resources between countries, including investment in businesses, financial market, and government assets. So this movement, it is a movement of capital, play a crucial role in globalization, fostering economic growth and influencing exchange rate, interest rate, and financial stability. Now, what happens? The mobility of capital across border has expanded significantly due to advances in technology, deregulation of financial market, and trade liberalization. So due to these factors that advances in technology, trade liberalization and deregulation of financial market, the mobility of capital across the borders in international trade has extended significantly. Now, basically what happened, if you consider a relatively capital abundant country or or a, or a country which is capital scarce or lack of capital. So what happened? There may be a movement of capital from capital abundant country to the capital lacking country or the country where there is a lack of capital. So this by movement of capital from one country, from the capital abundant country to the other country, both the countries can mutually benefit. For, for example, a relatively capital abundant country like United States can export either capital intensive commodity or export capital itself. Now, what happened? This international capital movement results in outflow of capital as well as inflow of capital from one country to the other. So that is why, but you have to remember that this capital movement do not relate to the movement of goods or payment for export and import between countries. So in that context, it is necessary to distinguish the international capital movement from the payment of import. That is, these two are totally different concepts. International capital movement is different from the payment made for import. So that is why the capital movement may either be meant for financing the deficit in the balance of payment or for bridging the gap or bringing about a net increase in the productive capacity in the economy. Now, if you consider the latter situation, that is increasing the productive capacity in the economy, the international capital movement can be treated as a factor of production. So how? Because if the sufficient inflow of capital fails to take place from abroad, the productive capacity is likely to be adversely affected. Obviously, because there are some countries where the productivity of capital is quite high because of lack of capital. So that is why if there is a movement of capital from the capital abundant countries, then the productive activities of the country where there is a lacking of capital will automatically increases. So in this connection, we must recognize that only real capital movement are significant from the point of view of allocation of resources. So it means that countries depending on the inflow of foreign capital to maintain or to raise the level of economic activity should have capital inflow of the magnitude which is more than the offset of the domestic price movement. Now, whenever we're talking about capital movement, we have to be very clear regarding the types of international capital movement. What are the different types of international capital movement and how they are different from each other. So that is why international capital movement can be broadly classified into different categories. So what is the first one? The first one is the foreign direct investment. So what is foreign direct investment? It basically involves long-term investment in foreign businesses where an investor gain sufficient control or influence over the enterprise. So, for example, if you want to give example of FDI, it basically includes the mergers, acquisition, joint ventures, and establishment of new businesses. The advantage of foreign direct investment is that it is of long-term nature. So when FDI comes, it longevity is quite sufficiently large as compared to foreign portfolio investment. Now, what is foreign portfolio investment, which is popularly known as FPI? So, unlike FDI, FPI entails investment in foreign financial assets such as stocks and bonds without active management or control. So, investor engage in foreign portfolio investment to diversify their portfolios and to seek higher returns. But the problem of if you compare the both there is a foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment. In case of foreign portfolio investment, it is more unstable and it is short term nature. So that is why it may create some kind of instability if the investor withdraw the money from the market. Now, another important form of foreign direct investment is official capital flows. So this includes government transactions such as foreign aid, loan from international financial institutions like International Monetary Fund and World Bank and the Sovereign Wealth Fund investment. So this is another popular form of capital flows. Now, another important type of international capital movement is bank loans and deposits. So regarding bank loans, commercial bank plays a significant role in international capital movement through cross-border lending and deposit taking. So by providing cross-border lend and by mobilizing deposits, they can also create or they can also facilitate the international movement of capital from one country to the another country. So this category also includes interbank lending and syndicated loans. Another important types of international capital movement is remittances. So it generally happens that the flow of money from migrant working abroad to their home countries also constitute a form of capital movement. Now if you see the present scenario, you can observe that remittances contribute significantly to the economic stability of many developing nations. As for example, India also, if you see, so India is a highly populated country. So as a result, a significant portion of population from our country has to have to work in other countries. So as a result, what happened? Remittances, that is remittances sent by those nationals which work in other countries is constitute a huge source of revenue for India. Now, when you are talking after discussing about the types of capital movement, we are in a position to discuss what are the factors actually that influence international capital movement. Because there are some factors which have an either positive or negative impact on movement of capital from one country to another country. So those we have to identify those factors. Now, if you want to identify the factors which create capital movement or which facilitate capital movement from one country to another country, one of the most important factor is interest rate differential. When an investor invests, the main purpose is to earn profit. So without earning profit, their willingness to invest will obviously decrease. So that is why investors always seek to higher returns. So lending them to move capital to countries with higher interest rate. So that is why what the investor will do, they will invest only when they are sure of the fact that they will earn higher interest rate from their capital. So that is why interest rate differential, among countries, is considered to be a significant factor for movement of capital from one country to the another country. So that is why interest rate is considered as one of the important factor that influence international capital movement. Now another important factor is economic and political stability. Unless the investor is certain about the stability in terms of economic and political, so they will not invest in those countries. So that is why countries with stable economics and governance attract more foreign investment, whereas political uncertainty leads to capital flight. So that is why when the political instability arises, when economic instability arises, what the investor will do, investor will move, take away the capital from that particular country to some other countries where there is a comparatively stable economic and political situation. So another important factor for international capital movement is the exchange rate expectation. Now what happens if an investor expect a currency to appreciate? So what they will do, they may move capital into that particular country. Obviously that will benefit them, from the exchange rate gains. So that is why exchange rate expectation is considered to be one of the important factors that influence international capital movement. And the reverse is the case. For example, if there is a possibility of currency to depreciate, so they will do, they will take away capital from that particular country. Now, another important factor of international capital movement is trade policies and regulation. Now, usually what happens, if you see the literature, liberal trade policies and reduced capital control encourage international capital flows. And the reverse is the case when lots of restrictions are put by the administration. So when lots of restrictions are put by the administration, so these restrictive measures can hinder or reduce the movement of capital in that particular country where there is comparatively more restriction as compared to countries where the restriction is comparatively low. Now, technological advancement is also considered as an important factor that influence international capital movement. So what is technological? How can we define technological advancement? For example, improve communication, financial technology. Now, what it will result? Improve communication and financial technology. It basically facilitate real-time transaction and reduce barriers to international capital movement. So it will, encourage the investor. It will give an investor a conducive environment to invest in those countries where there is a technological advancements and where there is a real-time transaction, which will reduce barriers to international capital movement. Another important factor that influence international capital movement is the bank rate. A stable bank rate of the central bank of a country also influences capital movement because market interest rate depends on bank rate. Now, if the bank rate is low, there will be outflow of capital. On the other hand, if bank rate is high, it will have an impact on market interest rate. That means market interest rate is also become high when bank rate is high. So there will be inflow of capital in the country. Now, another important factor of capital movement from one country to other countries is the production cost. So capital movement, this is because capital movement depends on production cost in other countries. So that is why in countries where labor, raw material, etc. are cheap and easily available, so more private capital flows into those countries. So the main reason for huge capital investment in countries such as Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong, and other developing countries. by the multinational corporation is due to low production costs in those countries. Along with the above factors, taxation policy is also considered as an important factor that affect the international movement of capital from one country to other country. So the taxation policy of a country also affect its inflow of capital. To encourage the inflow of foreign capital, what the countries need to do, the taxation policy should avoid double taxation. The taxation policy, it should not be burden for the entrepreneurs. So in some situation, if requires, it should give selectively tax relief to, so that it can encourage inflow of capital to new industries and for foreign collaboration. Another important factor of international capital movement is the marginal efficiency of capital. The marginal efficiency of capital is positively linked with the inflow of capital. So foreign investors, what they basically do, they generally compare the marginal efficiency of capital with the interest rate in different countries. And what will happen? So they prefer to invest in that country where rate of return is likely to be high, which will give them more amount of profit. Now, when there is an inflow and outflow of capital from one country to other country, so it has an impact on output as well as welfare of both the host countries as well as the other countries from where the capital is imported. Now, the international capital flow results in output and welfare effect upon the investing in host countries. Now, this can be explained with the help of a figure. So it is, for example, for the time being, we assume that we suppose that country A is the investing country and country B is the host country. Now, what will happen can be explained in the diagram as shown in the figure 1, where we assume that OO dash is the combined total capital stock of the two countries. It is country A, which is the host country, and country A, which is the investing country, and country B, which is the host countries. So originally we assume that OK is the capital stock of country A and O-K is the capital stock of country B as shown in figure 1. Now if you see the straight line, VA is the value of marginal product of capital curve of the country A, and VB as shown in figure 1 is the value of marginal product of capital curve of country B. So what happens if you see the figure 1, both the curve slope negatively, so indicating that the marginal product of capital in both countries are diminishing. Now, the value of marginal product of capital represents the return or yield on capital. So the investing country A, in isolation, if you see the figure, invest its entire capital stock, this is OK as shown in figure 1, domestically at a yield of KL or OM. If you see the yield, it is become KL or OM. The total product is for country A is OCLK. So out of it, for the out of it OKLM as shown in figure 1 goes to the owner of capital, and the rest MLC, the rest amount MLC to the owner of the other factors like land and labor. Now what happens in case of country B, that is a host country? Country B in isolation is invest its entire capital stock, that is O-K, domestically at a yield O-N or HK. So out of the total product O-DHK as shown in figure 1, O-N HK goes to capital and the remaining DHN to the other cooperating factors. Now we assume that there is a free capital movement of capital between the host, between the country A and country B. This is permitted. Then there will be flow of capital from country A to country B, obviously, because of higher yield or return on capital from country B than in country A. Now, if KK1 capital flows from country A to B, the return on capital in the two countries get equalized. So the return will become equal. That is EK1 is equal to, obviously it is equal to OF, and that is equal to O dash Z. So in this situation, what will happen? The total product in country A is OCEK1. So that is why, so it should be added to K1 EJK as a total return or foreign investment. Now what happened? The total national income, it amounts to OCEJK as shown in figure 1. So it shows a net gain for country A as EJL. The portion as shown in figure 1, EJL is the net gain for country A. The total return to capital increases to OFJK, and the return to other factors decreases to CEF. So in the case of the host country, that is B, there is inflow of capital from foreign country A to the extent of KK1. So the rate of return on capital falls from O-N to O-Z. So the total product in country B rises from O-DHK to O-DHK1. So thus, out of this whole transaction, the total product in the country rises by K1 EHK. So out of it, K1 is EJK goes to the foreign investor. So that is why the net gain in total product accruing to country B, that is the host country, is EJH. The total return to domestic owner of capital falls from O-NHK to O-ZJK. So as a result, the total return to other factors rises from DHN to DEG. So thus, considered from the viewpoint of either both the countries taken together, the addition of total product of the whole world, or amounts to EJL. If we add up EJL and EGH, it will become ELH. So thus, from the diagram, we can assess that the international capital flows raise the efficiency in the allocation of resources internationally, and the world output and welfare it get increase. So that is why. So what happened if you see the curve V and VB, greater is the steepness of the curve VA and VB, then greater can be the gain from international capital flows. That is why the slope or steepness of the curve VA and VB as shown in figure 1 is determines the relative gain of the two countries. Now, as shown in figure 1, we can have an idea. International trade has an impact, or it can, international capital movement, it can create some kind of benefit both the countries which where there is a capital movement from one country to the another country. Now, what are the benefit of international capital movement? The movement of capital across border has several benefits. First, the first benefit we can say it leads to economic growth. Now, how it leads to economic growth? Because the capital inflows, it basically contributes to investment. So ultimately, when there is investment, it will, when there is innovation in terms of technological investment, and when there is infrastructure development because of capital flows, it basically promotes economic expansion, which ultimately lead to economic growth. So that is what is happening after globalization, after economic reforms, when there is a less restriction on capital inflows, when there is a free movement of comparatively a relatively free movement of capital inflows from one countries to another countries. So it contributes to higher investment, innovation, infrastructure development, which ultimately lead to economic expansion and economic growth. Now, another important benefit of international capital movement is the diversification of investment risks. Now, what happened? If you consider from the angle of the investor, they usually wants to spread their capital into different source or different countries so that they can minimize their risks. So they want to spread their risks so that ultimately they can earn more profit. So international, when there is a less restriction on capital movement, they can take that opportunity to spread their capital into different countries so that they can minimize their risks. So as a result, free international capital movement, investor can spread risks by investing in multiple markets, so reducing the impact of localized economic downturn. So if there is, even if they invest in some country and there are some, due to some situation, there is an economic downturn, then, since if they spread the investment into different countries, they can compensate from the profit from the other countries. Now, improved efficiency in financial market is also considered as a benefit of international capital movement, because obviously international movement of capital increases efficiency in the financial market. So open capital market lead to better allocation of resources and better liquidity, making it easier for businesses to raise funds. Now, another important benefit of international capital movement which we need to discuss is the technology and knowledge transfers. So what happened? Foreign investment often brings lots of expertise, managerial skills, advanced technology. So these factors, that is, as I have already told, expert people, managerial skill, advanced technology, they lead to enhance productivity in the recipient countries, and ultimately it can be considered as a benefit of international capital movement. So these are the benefits of international capital movement, such as economic growth, diversification of investment risks, improved efficiency in financial market, and technology and knowledge transfers. So although international capital movement brings lots of benefit, it has an impact on the host countries in terms of increase in efficiency, skill, production, employment opportunities, improvement in the stock market. But international capital movement also has some risks and challenges. So we have to, along with the benefits, we have to analyze, we have to discuss what are the risks and challenges international capital movement create. So that is why it says, despite the advantages, international capital movement also poses certain risks and challenges. Now, the first challenges is the financial crisis. So, we witness the 1997 Asian financial crisis, 2008 global financial crisis. In almost all the countries are affected by those kind of financial crisis. So those crises are basically occurred, this kind of crisis may occur in a country due to sudden capital outflow. So what will happen? Sudden capital outflows can trigger, economic instability in those countries, and this may lead to some kind of crisis. Next, important risk of capital movement is the exchange rate volatility. So what happens? Large-scale capital movement can cause fluctuation in the exchange rate, and which ultimately it impact on the trade balances and inflation. So that is why exchanges volatility is considered as one of the important risks of international capital movement. Dependence on foreign capital. So it is good that we should encourage the inflow of capital in a country. So for a host country, it is believed that it will increase the productive capacity of the economy. But the problem is that over dependence on foreign capital or over reliance on foreign investment can make that particular economy to vulnerable to economic shocks in investor sentiment. So one, the investor feel that there is some kind of political or economy instability. They believe that they got some kind of place where they will earn more revenue. So what they will do, this will create to outflow of capital, and that will create sudden shock to that particular country. So that is why over dependency on foreign capital is not considered to be a conducive for the host country. Another important risk of international capital movement is the speculative investment. So short-term capital flows can create asset bubbles, and ultimately due to these asset bubbles, it leads to financial stability when these bubbles burst. So that is why speculative investment is another risk or challenges for international capital movement. So thus, in conclusion, what we can say or what we can conclude that international capital movement are a vital component of global economy. No one is denying that, because it influences financial stability. It also leads to economic growth, and it also creates some kind of international relation between the investing and the host countries. So while the international capital movement offer numerous benefits, as we have already discussed, the benefits of international capital flow in terms of growth, stability, technological advancement, they also pose risks that require careful management through sound economic policies, regulatory framework, and international cooperation. Now, what we will do, we need to strike a balance between openness and financial prudence. So by making a balance between openness and financial prudence, so nations can harness the advantages of capital mobility while mitigating its potential downturn. So that is why there should be some kind of precaution, there should be some kind of preparedness on the part of the host countries while dealing with international capital